Heath Johnson from Spearfish, South Dakota. Doug Pagitt Radio is brought to you by the enthusiastic listeners like me. You can join the revolution at DougPagittRadio.com.
Welcome back to Doug Pagitt Radio. We're going to have a little conversation here with my buddy Bryan. Bryan has written a book called The 6 Marks of Progressive Christian Worship Music.
Oh.
And, hey, Bryan, how are you, buddy?
I'm doing well. How about you, Doug?
Oh, just great. And you're on with Victoria.
Hi, Bryan.
Thanks so much for being flexible with us here on our scheduling today.
Yeah,
No
we're
problem.
squeezing in
Squeezing you
extra
in.
guests.
Glad to be one of them.
Good. Bryan, congratulations on the book. It's called The 6 Marks of Progressive Christian Worship Music. And, as you and I have talked personally before, this is a big deal for churches to try to figure out metaphorically and quite literally what songs they're going to sing.
Yeah. Well, thanks. It's great to be able to talk about it with you.
Tell us a little bit about what went into this for you. What are you trying to get at, and what's the notion of there being 6 marks of progressive Christian music?
Okay. Well, I can respond to that in a couple ways. First of all, I've been out for 26 years now, traveling around in churches, mostly mainline Protestant churches, which tend to be a bit more progressive, sharing my music. And a lot of when my ministry started, it was much more solo-oriented music. And I do concerts, people would listen to me, but I was getting so many requests for songs that had the same kind of inclusive theology or more progressive theology that I'm known for. People saying, is there any of that for congregational singing?
Mm-hmm.
Because so much of the praise and the worship music that comes out of that, contemporary Christian music industry doesn't really fit the theological emphases and traditions of more mainline Protestant churches.
Yeah.
So there was this invitation that kept on coming up. And I got tired of the negative tone of the conversation. Every time I'd be with clergy from mainline churches, it was the conversation, everyone loved to talk about how much they disliked the theology and message of a lot of the praise and worship music.
Mm-hmm.
So after a lot of years, I just said, how about we shift the tone of the conversation? And instead of complaining about what we don't like theologically, etc., we get clear about what it is we're trying to bring into being. So that's why I framed the book, The 6 Marks of Progressive Christian Worship Music. I mean, if there were a subtitle, it probably could have been something like Why Your Mainline Pastor Doesn't Like Praise and Worship Music.
Yeah, right. Right. And it's so the 6 marks for people who are interested are praise, justice, and the fullness of human experience,
Right.
inclusive language,
Right?
a sense of progressive theology,
Right.
an emphasis on the individual and the community together, emotional authenticity, and then fresh images and ideas and language.
Right.
Now, so let's sort of do cultural and theological anthropology for a minute. What is it that's caused the kind of sound that people like of music, right? Some people like that kind of worship sound, sort of the Goo Goo Dolls kind of worship song thing. And what is it that has caused that to be blended with a kind of conservative and bloodletting spirituality thing that is so common in that music? Is it because it tends to be written by younger people, and younger people live through a period of time where a version of kind of a judgment-oriented limiting God sounds like and feels like a good thing to people? What do you think? What do you think's caused this whole industry to grow up and be so fraught with only one kind of language and only one kind of messaging in the music?
That is a fascinating question. I mean, I guess I'll say that I don't necessarily think there's any essential connection between that style of music, this actual style of the music itself, and the theology. And I think that theology, it permeates so many different styles of music, whether it's the old hymnody.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Or whether it's the more contemporary stuff. So for me, and one of the points that I make very strongly is I think people need to stop thinking in terms, first and foremost, about style of music as secular or not secular, Or I mean,
Yeah.
like when you think about it, I mean, there's metal music, everything from metal to bluegrass to jazz to industrial to traditional 18th and 19th century hymnody.
Right.
All have that same theology, you know. Um, and so for me, style of music that more becomes an issue of what's the heart language
Mm.
people gathered.
Mm-hmm.
So in so much as a lot of the mega churches or the more contemporary independent churches that are growing like crazy, in so much as they tend to have a younger demographic. I think those folks have a particular and they tend to be uniform or homogenous in terms of
Mm.
socioeconomic reality, etc.
Yeah.
So if the language that speaks to their hearts and the contemporary soundtrack of their lives is the Goo Goo Dolls thing or whatever it may be, then they're going to find a theology that they can wed with the music that speaks to their hearts.
Mm.
But one of the points that I like to make is that one of the first things that we need to do is say, who's gathered here to worship? You know, it's not just me.
Mhm.
Who am I doing this with? And is it possible? I mean, do we have a predominant style of music that really moves us, that really speaks to us in that way that music does? If so, then let's make sure that that style of music is part of our worship life. People are longing for that. But in so many more traditional or mainline churches, the simple truth is that the people are all over the place in terms of the styles of music that they love. And in which case, then I would say there probably needs to be a diversity of styles of congregational music.
Mm.
And one of the things that I'm always saying to people is, you know what? It's not about you. Get over yourself. It's not about coming to church with a consumeristic mentality saying, what kind of music do I like? And trying to find a church that does that. It's more a matter of, who am I here to worship God with? Is there a style that we like? If not, then sure, I have my preferences, but so and so a few rows down the sanctuary from me may also have his or her style that's very different. Let me be open and loving enough to also welcome the styles of music they like here, so that we'll each have our own needs met in that regard. But it's more about we than me and my personal preference.
Yeah, and I like that, and I think I think you're right that the notion that the style of music is really it doesn't seem to be. I don't know. That's going to be whatever it is, right? Because that's just there's going to be different collections of people who have different instrumentation and different sensibilities and aesthetics. But across the board, as you brought up, the same kind of theology and the same kind of messaging exists in hymns, in bluegrass, in rock and roll, in gospel music. You know, there's big African American churches that sing songs that have a storyline in them and a content and imagery that doesn't work for me at all. So there's something about the messaging, kind of a certain story of Christianity that does cross over all of these musical styles and genre.
Exactly. And that's why, I spend a lot of time the book is primarily about the messaging.
Yeah.
Getting clear on, and again, instead of constantly critiquing what many of us don't care for in that more conservative or evangelical kind of quote Christian music.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, one of the things I'm very upfront about is that it's very difficult to avoid labeling when we have these conversations.
Sure.
But I understand the need for it. I use it. I use the word progressive. I mean, we could spend our whole little segment here talking about
right.
it. Not that was the word to use.
Yeah.
And so language fails us at a point. But anyway, my book is primarily about the music, or the message of the music, the lyrics, the content, the theology, what it is we're singing about.
Yeah, and one of the places, I can't remember where it is, you have a conversation with a friend, and basically your friend gives you this notion of, like, I don't want songs, you have to remind me because I'm not going to remember all this. I don't want songs that are about the bloody Jesus, the Rambo Jesus, or like, was it the boyfriend the boyfriend Jesus, right?
Yeah,
and that was a pretty good way to think about it, right? Like, because I hadn't really thought about those terms, but there's a song that came to my mind today because I was getting ready for the interview and looking at your book and all this stuff. There's a worship song called "How Could I But Love You." I think it's actually called "How Could I,"
Right.
But like the lyrics are, how could I but love you? How could I but serve you? How could I but honor you? And like, okay, so the sophomore in my head is giggling. I've been giggling for an hour. Like I had to look it up on YouTube and then watch it. And I'm like, that is unbelievable to me. I mean,
Subliminal message.
how could I but love you? People singing out loud. That is hilarious.
Over and over.
Right. Okay. So, but there's kind of this sensibility of music that does tend to fall into one of those three categories. And then this progressive music, and you know, I know you're a positive person and you want to create the positive things in the world, and I like that so much about you. But man, like I listen to songs that people sing in you know kind of more mainline sorts of churches and kind of what am I thinking of, like universalist kinds of churches, right? Then they tend not to say anything, right? Like it seems like there's this recognition that language is going to fail us, so we now have to use language in such a non-offensive way that it doesn't seem to fit the struggle of the world. And that's one of the things I think that, you know, of your 6 marks, I think that idea of emotional authenticity might be the one that has pushed people into music that's more either bloody or Rambo or boyfriend than they want.
Yeah. I mean, great point, Doug. By the way, the guy that came up with those 3 rules is Greg Brecky. He used to be one of the directors of the United Church of Christ National Communications publication of some kind. But when he was a pastor, he came up with those 3 rules, which I just loved. Yeah, but you know, I think what we're really getting at here is music that has a gutsy, edgy, theological, you know, some substance that we can really give our lives to that also moves us.
Yeah.
And so, you know, what we're talking about is how to have theology, first of all, and a faith, but I mean, then music that's expressive of a faith that's both head and heart. And I think that's, you know, you can go into what my friend Christopher Grundy refers to as the shallows on either side of that.
Yeah.
You know, you can have too much head and too much intellect and say all kinds of interesting things that just are putting you to sleep, and that just don't lend themselves to a lyric. Or you can touch people's hearts and very often manipulate people's emotions with music and lyric, but not really be saying anything particularly deep.
Yeah,
So,
and I wonder if there's also a third, like something about the gut in there, something that's gutsy music, something that's, you know, because I don't like. Do you think there's something about worship music where we're trying to do too much? Because I don't know, and maybe I'm wrong about this, but I don't know that musicians in other fields, popular musicians or orchestral conductors or music writers or people that write symphonies or people that do operas, I don't know, do they struggle with this same kind of fear that it's going to be a little too, a little too sweet or a little too saccharine or something? Do you think that's a problem? Like it. Why is it that religious people, when they want to have music for religious purposes, seem to lose all their like musical chops in order to be good musically? Or am I wrong about that? Do they not? Do people experience this in every genre of being a professional music generator?
Well, I mean, again, great question. Of course, you know, I can't speak for people in every different genres. I don't write symphonies or whatever. But again, I mean, music. I mean, you know, without lyrics, and this is, you know, I'm often asked to talk about music, and it's ultimately one of those things you just got to experience. It's difficult to talk about it, but I mean, but music speaks to our hearts. It touches our beings in a place and in a way. It moves us, even without any words at all. Sometimes words are, you know, beside the point and get in the way. But it has that ability to do what music does. So it has its own power in terms of emotion. I think people in religious contexts, and let's keep it in the church world, so that's what I'm writing about, are longing for a faith that moves them. So yes, music has the power to move us. And people who are skilled in this, I mean, musicians know. I mean, I don't know if you remember the inspirational days of like Sandy Patty and Larnell Harris and Steve Green. You know, but
Yeah.
they would modulate 5 times at the end of the song. So you've got this
Oh.
big orchestral thing, and people began to think that if I get goosebumps from the music, I have felt the presence of the Holy Spirit.
Yeah,
Wow.
right.
Well,
People
there's
still talk about that when they go to a U2 concert. They're like, it was the most spiritual experience I've ever had because, they
And
were.
really, it was, what is it, just chemicals?
Yeah.
Auditory induced
Yeah,
chemicals?
I wonder.
there's that too. That's another show, I guess.
Mhm.
But no, but there is that physiological component of, music. I'm sure it can be actually recorded that music touches us in
Right,
a way
sure.
that changes us.
Yeah.
So, all I can say is that musicians and composers need to have profound respect for that power
Nice.
and to understand the difference between using a technique to motivate or, to manipulate people or to get a certain effect. In my concerts, like there have been times that I'm looking out and doesn't seem like they're connecting. So I know which song is going to make somebody cry.
Yeah.
There's a tremendous temptation, to say, all right, I'm going to move these people whether they want to be moved or not.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that's not necessarily the Spirit of God doing that.
Mhm.
That's me employing a technique.
Mhm.
So writers of congregational music know that. And all I can say is we have to have profound respect for how we use that power. So I think a lot of people feel that if they've gone to church or they've been in worship, especially in the more evangelical liturgies where they'll have a half hour of singing at the beginning of church
Yes,
and
right.
call that the worship,
Yep.
and hopefully that culminates in people crying and weeping and pouring out their hearts to God, etc. Now that can be very, very real and very, very authentic. I don't want to put that down at all, and I'd actually love to see more place for emotional expression if it's real and authentic in more progressive circles.
And no judgment if you're not feeling that way.
Exactly. It's just because you're crying. As I say in the book, you may be ethnically or culturally wired to emote overtly.
Right.
That doesn't mean you're more spiritual.
Right. Right. You don't have to be the preacher that puts the tack in your shoe so that when you get to that part of the sermon where you need to pull up some emotion and some weeping, you just lean that toe into it. You know that old trick?
Pulling out those hairs or something.
Yeah.
No, yeah, absolutely. So you get the point I'm trying to make.
Mhm.
All I can say is that there is an authentic longing, I think, in all of us for an experience of God, an experience of the divine in community that moves us and opens up our hearts in a true, authentic, deep way to experiencing the presence and responding to God. And music has a role in evoking that, in helping that happen. And ultimately, though, all music can do, as far as I'm concerned, is help create the atmosphere in which God's Spirit can authentically do that.
Interesting. It's curious. I've been around mainline folks before, and I'll ask them kind of what they do at their churches, because I go and do stuff on, like, how to structure your church or change your church or this kind of thing, do conferences and so on. And very often, people who are highly progressive theologically, highly progressive culturally, will still use music from kind of the contemporary worship style that isn't anything close to what they would be saying. And I would poke around and ask about that. Well, how do you end up singing that genre of song when you say these things in the sermon? And many times people are like, oh, well, nobody cares what the words are in the song. Like, the words are sort of, and I've kind of wondered, like, okay, do people like the three of us, do we just obsess too much about people not singing the right thing? Like what's the real danger in this? So what? So people sing a song about, seeing you on the cross, how could I but love you? And seeing your shed blood makes me love you all the more. Well, okay, so people say that, but they're really just kind of like, is there all that much harm really being done in it? So that can either be a real question or a softball question.
It's a great question.
What's the problem? So what? And people sing country songs but don't plan to leave their wives. People sing religious songs but don't plan to, bloody somebody else on behalf of Jesus.
Well, I would say, why in the world would we deliberately have that kind of disconnect or deliberately use music that would undermine everything else we're trying to say and be about in the context of worship, especially when music has the power to highlight or undergird or to bring a truth into a part of our being that that mere intellectual content or spoken word does not. So I mean, at the very least, we're missing the opportunity that music brings to us, and we're misusing the magic in the sense of that word
Interesting.
that music offers when we are sloppy about the theology or the message. And I think what's often happening is people are saying, okay, now we're going to sing a song because, well, I guess music, it helps build community, and we've had enough speaking, so we need something, a different dynamic part of the flow here. And what people are often saying to me is, we don't have the songs that have the kind of theology that's congruent with all the other theological edges we're pushing these days.
Yeah.
And that's part of why I wrote the book, is to say, hey, we need to give birth to a new genre of so-called Christian music.
And so one of the things you do in the book is you say to people, well, here's a way to a different kind of outcome in the music that you're singing. Can you give us the quick recap of the way Can you give us the quick recap of what you do in the book, where you say to people, look, there is a way you can end up with a different kind of worship music? Because sections 2 and 3 of the book start to push people to say, look, there's a way to do this. There's an invitation here to generate a different kind of worship music.
Well, I don't know if I'm fully following your question, but my response would just be that I mean, I set the book up so that, I mean, there are questions at the end of each chapter. What I'm really trying to do, Doug, is invite people into a conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I mean, I think this isn't going to just happen. I mean, yes, those who design worship can choose better songs, and if they know where they can be found, well, then they have a place where they can choose them, etc. And there's a new catalog of music, not just mine, but there are lots of other folks, Christopher Grundy, Richard Brooksford Culligan, Andrew Moran, to name 3 that I believe in strongly. But this music's being made available, so they can find it. But really, I think we need to educate ourselves. We need our musicians to become better theologians.
Oh.
And we need our theologians, our pastors, our preachers to become more sensitive artists and more aware of the power of art, not just music, but art in general. But I'm writing about music here. So this is a conversation, and the book provides a framework for which that conversation can happen. And I think of a respectful way, because let's face it, it quickly gets controversial when you start messing with the theology of the songs that we've been singing for generations.
Yeah,
and
for
it
sure.
gets hard to control. I mean, if you start to say to the artists, really explore your art, they don't always say things exactly the way you want to say them. And I think some of the music that's used is it's easy to control.
Yeah.
And I think any artist knows that things get messy pretty fast when you're really letting yourself freedom within your craft.
Yeah.
And so I think that's part of where it gets complicated for churches.
Bryan, you've the book is 6 Marks of Progressive Christian Worship Music, and it's totally worth people picking up and engaging in. But you were also in Haiti. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, sure. I mean, that's another chapter of my life. For the last 22 years, I've been working extensively with grassroots organizations in Haiti, primarily trying to help kids go to school, provide food, and create jobs wherever possible, and to do that in a respectful, sustainable way.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been a huge part of my life, and a real gift to have this relationship with some of the poorest people on the planet that greatly shapes and informs my theology and my sense of what God is up to in the world, and the songs that I write as well.
And people tend to know about Haiti for a few reasons, right? One of the poorest places in the world. I think it is the poorest in the Western Hemisphere, so Americans pay attention that way. The Clintons like Haiti, spent some time there. And there was that earthquake, right? And other than that, most people don't know anything. So everything they tend to know about Haiti is well, there's bad stuff there that happens, and even good, powerful people can't seem to help it.
It's kind of desperate.
But I'm sure someone who's been there for 22 years, and you just got back this week, there's beautiful things in Haiti, isn't there?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the people are unbelievable, and the welcome and the open-heartedness. I mean, anyone who's gone to a so-called third world country, and I always say so-called third world because a Haitian friend of mine once said, please stop using those terms, first world and third world. We'd prefer you use the terms the plundering world and the plundered world. Because at least that's historically accurate.
That's great.
Yeah. but yeah, I mean, the people are just unbelievably beautiful, and the resiliency of human spirit, people who heroically respond to incredible odds, and then have a faith that will blow you away. I mean, just I get evangelized by the poor every time I go there. And one of the big gifts, though, is also to make friends among some of the poorest people on the planet, so that we're not just talking. I mean, I really don't like the term "the poor."
Yeah.
As Shane Claiborne recently said in his Sojourner's article about making friends in Afghanistan, the poverty will never be history until poverty is personal. And so it's about relationships and connecting, and then really pushing ourselves to rethink how, quote, mission work is done, so that we're not creating cycles of dependency, and really investing in respectful methodologies that are about sustainability and cooperative structures, and et cetera.
So were you in Port-au-Prince, the area where the earthquake was most devastating, or were you in other parts of the country?
I most of my work, the work I've been connected to, has been in Port-au-Prince, and in a shanty town on the outskirts of Port-au-Prince called Cité Soleil, which is Mother Teresa once referred to it as the poorest place on the planet.
And how are things in Port-au-Prince with the reconstruction and the sort of people having to live through the devastation of that earthquake?
Well, there are some signs of some progress.
Oh my gosh!
In terms of,
Isn't that unbelievable? Was it 3 years? Has it been 3 years?
That's right. Yeah, it was January of 2010 when the earthquake hit. There have been some signs of progress. I guess, to be blunt, I know we don't have a lot of time. It's been scandalously inept on the other hand. I mean, of the billions and billions that were contributed, less than 3% has actually been released.
Dear.
And large organizations, I mean, on the light side of things, or giving them the benefit of the doubt, they say we need to take our time, and to this is our chance to really rebuild, and to, as the Clinton Foundation says, build back better. So they say they need a 10-year plan. They need to take time. They don't want to just throw these resources away, et cetera. I don't think they balanced that long-term vision well with a short-term response or immediate response to the urgency. So there's still hundreds of thousands homeless in Port-au-Prince, et cetera. And one of the organizations that I work with, called Haiti Allies, one of the things we've been involved with is helping a tent city relocate to another piece of land and actually establish a village.
Well, Bryan, that is the work of God, my friend. I mean, that is that's the kind of thing we're supposed to do. And on behalf of all of us who would like to be doing that and don't, or want to fund it and can't, or someday plan to go, we appreciate your willingness to go and to be the person and to do that work. And we have a little segment of the show we call the Right On. So we like to say around here, there's some things in this world that are not the way they're supposed to be. Some things that are not quite right, but then there are some things that are just right on. And you, Bryan, you are right on. In the work that you've done.
You get the coveted.
You get the coveted right on.
Award.
And if we weren't so cheap, we'd send you a button or something. But
I am profoundly honored.
But we don't even have one. Well, thank you, buddy. Appreciate your work. The book is The 6 Marks of Progressive Christian Worship, and I'm assuming that if anyone wants a connection to Haiti and they don't know where to turn, that you'd be glad to hook them up.
Absolutely, yeah. They just reach me through the website. There's a website, 6marks.com. We'll get you to the book or my name. And if you want to know more about Haiti, contact me. Come with me.
Yeah,
Great.
I love it. Hey, thanks, buddy. We'll talk with you soon.
Take care, Bryan.
Yeah, great. Thanks a lot.
Okay, bye-bye. Doug Pagitt Radio will be back next week.
Woohoo!
We'll see you down the road.
Until then.
Still like, no, you can't say anything after that.
Oh,
we'll see you down the road.